And without further ado, we have the honor today to have two special people with us. We have David Millet, co-founder of SQALogic, and we have Federico Toledo, co-founder of Abstracta. Guys, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, and we're gonna start with you, David. For the people who don't know who is SQALogic, what can you tell us? Who is SQALogic? What was the idea behind the creation of SQALogic?
Thank you, Quentin. I'm only going to take a couple of minutes here. As mentioned, I am on the road between Montreal and Toronto, so apologies if it's not perfect. That's what happens when you're on a 5G connection on a highway. But I wanted to thank everybody for joining the session today. We are thrilled to be participating with our friends from Abstracta. We've been partners now for a number of years, and we aim to do a couple of these sessions. Actually, this is probably the first of a series that I'd like to see us delivering. Lots of interesting topics that we can tackle together. SQALogic, a little bit about the company. We've been in existence now for about 14 years. We specialize in quality and testing services. I have been in the industry now for 30 years, a long time, and founded this company with the objective of helping people understand the evolution of how the field is evolving and changing, helping organizations do more with the technologies that they deploy in the space, optimizing practices, and so forth. And our partnership with Abstracta is extremely important and an interesting one because, geographically we might not be in the same locations, but philosophy-wise, I believe we're very much the same. And without further ado, because I don't want to steal the thunder of the presentation, I want to hand it off to our friends from Abstracta. Federico, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself and your company.
Thank you, David. I'm Federico Toledo, one of the co-founders of Abstracta. We started 16 years ago with similar purpose. Actually, at the beginning, we started as a product company. We developed a test automation tool for a specific platform, and then things drove us to start offering software testing services, also mainly in test automation, performance, functional testing. Nowadays, our offering is even wider in terms of quality, and also continuing innovating with different tools for testing, and in the last couple of years in different things related to AI, of course. And I'm also so happy to be here presenting this panel, which is this presentation, this webinar, one of the first with you guys. So happy to be collaborating with SQALogic and also with Tricentis, another important partner for us. So I don't want to take more time because the promise here is to learn more about Tosca and Testim and let the experts continue the conversation from here.
And before we start talking about Testim and Tosca, I have to ask the question. I think you have a big event coming really soon, Quality Sense Conf.
That's true, and we are working a lot. Even though it's in October, we are already working a lot in that conference. I hope you can join us in Colombia this year. This is the third edition. We started here in Uruguay. Last year it was in Chile, and now we are planning to have the third edition in October in Colombia. And it's going to be a hybrid event. So if you cannot make it to Medellin, which I recommend, you can also watch it online. So thank you for the shout out. And it's going to be amazing. A great list of speakers, hoping to confirm also David as one of them. But yeah, thank you for sharing about it. You can check qualitysenseconf.com if you want to learn more. And actually, the call for speakers is open until this Sunday.
All right, and Chris shared the link to access the page, the website, the web page dedicated to the event. If anyone wants to check it out. All right. And David, I don't know if you are still with us or already on the road. I wanted to introduce Star West, your participation to Star West. Do you want to talk a little bit about it, or
Oh,
I can do it
sure.
if you
I
want?
could give a little brief invite to that as well. Thank you, Quentin, for reminding me. Yes, I will be presenting a track around the importance of AI, the evolution of how it will be adapting the role of the QA tester, and talking about the ins and outs and good and bad that'll happen from that, as well as the notion of the responsibility of us as quality practitioners to figure out how do we test the tests and how do we validate the efficiencies of AI, and how it kind of changes the paradigms of the way we approach things. So if you are participating in Star West or plan on being there, please do register to join the session. I think it'll be a fun one, and I look forward to exchanging with you all at that event. Cheers.
Thank you very much, David. And again, I sent the link in the chat if anyone wants more information about David's speech at the next Star West. All right. Thank you very much, Federico. Thank you very much, David, for being there today. Thank you. Now, let me introduce you to the infamous trio that we have here, and that is gonna present you Tosca and Testim. First, I'm gonna go in order of the slide. First, we have here Albert Reyes. Albert Reyes,
Hello, everyone.
hi, how are you doing?
Doing well, healthy.
What can you tell us about you? Can you briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. Well, Albert Reyes here, pre-sales engineer for SQALogic. I've had many roles in my past, always evolving in the industry. Been in IT in general for over 20 years now. It doesn't look like it with my baby face, but that's reality. And yeah, I've been working with SQALogic for the past 5 or 6 years, and I've absolutely loved working with the team, with our lovely partners that we have. Yeah, I look forward to informing the individuals on this call a little bit more today.
Thank you very much, Albert. Federico,
Pleasure.
this is your turn. Who are you?
Thank you, Quentin. Federico Martinez here. I've been working in QA for the last 15 years. I didn't jump between roles like Albert. I was always on QA. And now I'm QA leader. I've been working in Abstracta for the last 3 years and always working close to low-code automation tools such as Testim and Tosca that we will be discussing about today. So looking forward to jump into it.
Thank you very much, Federico, for this introduction. And finally, we have Jacob Mansfield here. Jacob, hello.
Yep.
Can you introduce
Thanks,
yourself
Quentin.
to the audience? I think you
Yeah,
are
of course.
the
Uh,
big expert here.
Yeah, so I'm coming from Tricentis. I've been here at the company for almost 7 years now. I started out at Tricentis in the consulting space, working with our customers to get stood up on our products like Tosca and Testim. But in the last couple of years, I've been working closely with our partners like Abstracta and SQA, to help them get enabled on our tools and help them deliver our tools out to their customers as well.
Thank you very much. And without further ado, we're gonna start the webinar. Before that, I'm gonna take 1 minute to introduce myself. I am Quentin, as you may have noticed. My name is Quentin, and I will be your host today. If you have any question during the webinar or at the end of the webinar when we are gonna start the QA session, you know the drill. Post it in the chat. Again, if there is any problem during the broadcasting, let me know in the chat and I will try to make it better for everyone as soon as possible. One last thing, a replay will be available after this webinar. You can expect it next week. So if you want to check something again, you will be able to do so. At the end of this webinar, you will also be able to access a page via a QR code to contact us via a form. So there we go. let's start. And I'm gonna start with the summary. So this journey today will take us through an overview of Tosca and Testim, so that everyone knows what we are going to talk about today. We are then going to talk about the key difference between the two tools. I love to say that, two tools. Then we're going to go for the scenarios for the tool selection, the synergy in integration. We're going to talk about a customer story, but you will notice that all along this webinar, we will have some example to give you. And at the end, we will have a conversation, a conclusion, going back through everything that we said during this webinar. All right, let's start with an overview of Tricentis Tosca. And Jacob, I'm gonna let you start here. What can you tell us about Tosca?
Thanks, Quinn. So Tricentis Tosca is really the tool that Tricentis was founded around years and years ago. Our founder first built Tosca as a tool that he was using in his own practice as a consultant. Back then, and I think he built the tool almost 20 years ago for himself now. He was doing QA consulting, and he thought there'd be a better way to approach it than purely script-based automation. So he built a tool that is model-based, and that model-based framework is still the core of Tosca. So when we're talking about model-based, we mean that when we're going in and building out these automation scripts, we are scanning or collecting controls from sections of the application and building them into what we like to refer to as Lego blocks. They're called modules in the tool. And we're using these Lego blocks to stack and build out these test cases. Now, the great thing about these Lego blocks is they're reusable and shareable within the organization. So once you build these models once, you'll never have to go rebuild that portion of the application again, and you can continue to reuse them over and over again throughout your test cases. So the longer you use Tosca, the faster your test case creation gets within the tool, making it a highly scalable tool. And on top of that, it's also technology agnostic. Really anything within an organization, Tosca is going to be able to automate and allows you to really build complex end-to-end test cases.
All right, thank you. Albert, anything to add about Tosca?
Tosca, no, basically it's exactly what Jacob says. It was designed for teams that have low coding skills and or expertise, and it's really easy to just pick up and roll with it.
All right. And then we have Testim here. Jacob, what is Testim?
Yeah, so Testim is a much newer tool in the market, but still just as powerful as Tosca. Testim takes a little bit of a different approach to creating automated test cases. Testim has an AI-powered recorder that allows you to build out these test cases by just recording your actions as you work through your test case. I think there's been a lot of testing recording tools out in the market over the years. I mean, Tosca even has one as well. But Testim's really solved that challenge of those recorders just not being able to successfully create test cases by using this AI engine behind it. Without getting too much into the technical weeds, it also has a self-healing functionality that's powered by that same AI engine. So when something changes in your application, Testim's able to adjust the test case to meet that change. So the test case can still go through and complete your regression suite or complete your smoke suite without having to go in and repair every test case once something breaks.
Thank you. Federico, do you have anything to add about Testim? Any experiences that you want to share?
They pretty much covered, but just to add that if you have a good team with low technical abilities, this is the tool, because with AI, you don't have to fight with selectors. There's people that automate in the audience, they know that's a problem. So it is solved with Testim, and it's pretty straightforward for non-technical people. So thank you, Jacob.
All right, and let me try something and see if the chat is working, because I want to make sure that everyone can ask the question. Is there anyone today in the audience that already, hello Augustin, that already used Testim or Tosca, or both tools? Actually, you can use both. Let me know in the chat. Only Testim for Augustin. Okay.
Perfect.
Louis did. Luis, did you use both or just one or the other? Both, okay. Melissa is used to Tosca, apparently. All right.
So we have a really good mix of either they've used both or they've used one or the other. So
Yep.
that's very good.
We have the three situation. All right, and we're gonna talk about both, and then we're gonna talk about each tool, and then what we can do with both of them.
Perfect.
Lior is using Testim, I see. All right, thank you everyone for reacting in the chat. Let's talk about key differences first. Then we're gonna talk
Sure.
about the synergy. And we're gonna start with the architecture here. Albert, do you want
Sure.
to start?
Well, yeah. Anybody who's used the tools are probably familiar as to how you can install them. Testim is a very SaaS-based tool where it's pretty easily delivered to the customer. So it's one of those you pick up and go type tools. Whereas Tosca provides you a little bit more flexibility in terms of your technological environment. So if you want to go with a more on-prem install, you can. Or if your company is going more towards a cloud-based infrastructure, or nowadays a lot of these organizations are cloud-centric, then there's definitely a cloud install of Tosca as well.
All right, and on the next point, scripting languages. Federico, what can you tell us about
Talking about scripting languages, on Tosca's side, we have that they support Visual Basic, JavaScript, and C#, so you can get like empower your automation with coding. And on the other hand, we have Testim that provides the possibility of creating JavaScript snippets or Node.js. And there's a new copilot there that will help you with code suggestions. So as I said, non-technical people can like explore that part of creating those JavaScript snippets. That also hits on the learning curve. You might have like more technical people exploiting Tosca, and on the other side with Testim, I don't know if you agree, Albert. With Testim, it's like more like working with codeless automation. I don't know what you think
Well,
about it, Albert.
Yeah, well, Testim, what I like about Testim is the flexibility, right? So you could either go with the built-in intuitive to AI powered recording, or you can also give the coders, the developers, the programs also access to the code. So it's extremely versatile when it comes to that. Tosca is very model-based testing, so it's really built around ease of use and low code, no code, more no code than anything else, because it's more based out of a ABL type structure, which is, for people that don't know, it's more of an action based. So whenever you get your inputs like click or input or verify commands, well, it's structured more of that in that form.
All right, thank you. I have a question. I dare to ask, and I'm also asking you, Jacob. For me, that never used any testing tool yet, I'm a marketing guy, okay? You are the expert. Which one of the two tools will be best suited for me? If you talk about learning curve, and we're going to talk about ease to use, if I know nothing about testing, can I go on the Tricentis website and start using Tosca and Testim like nothing?
Yeah, so both tools on the Tricentis Academy, our online education portal, have full end-to-end education courses around learning the tools. We've had many of our own sales and marketing team members take the courses and build the test cases themselves as well. And back when I was doing a lot of consulting, especially with my consulting days were primarily focused around Tosca at the time, I was walking into organizations who had primarily manual testing teams, who had no coding experience. They've been doing manual testing for over a decade. Was their entire career, and within 2 to 3 weeks, we were getting these teams with zero coding experience able to create automated test cases on their own. So certainly doable by anyone. who's got the drive to take the courses. But yeah, Quentin, I wouldn't doubt that you'd be able to create test cases in no time.
There is hope for me. You see, Albert?
If I can add a parallel to what Jacob just mentioned about the courses, the great thing about them is that the structure of the courses are very well laid out. Easy to just pause it, come back to it. It's not courses that you're forced to sit down for 20, 30 hours and actually get it done in one day. They are built to, pause, come back until you're completed. So very good point, Jacob.
Thank you. And what about the automation approaches? What's the difference between the two tools?
Okay, so we'll come back to scalability.
Yeah, because from what I understood, it's a big subject. So can we keep it for after?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, no. Automation approach is exactly what we said earlier, right? It's more of a model-based testing approach versus a more AI-powered recording slash visual and sort of code approaches. So it's both tools are very, very uniquely built for different target audiences and teams. However, they're both very, very versatile, very flexible in terms of getting your practice up and going.
All right.
Federico, I'm not sure if you have any opinions on that one.
No, completely agree on that. It's like they are both created to empower the teams that you already have, not having to fall into like big technical teams to have your own automation. So completely agree on that.
All right. And what about the support for technologies? Federico.
Yeah, go ahead, Federico.
Go for it, Albert.
Oh.
Yeah, well,
I
was just gonna
say.
Okay, Jacob, go for it.
Fine. Let's let Jacob take that one.
Sure. So I think I kind of hit on this when I was talking about the overviews, but Tosca from there's a phrase we like to say is from mobile to mainframe. So Tosca's really plays well in systems where we're using legacy applications, we're using legacy on-premise or even mainframe emulators. It has that capability to really test just about any application. Testim, since it is a cloud product and is a web-based product, is limited to web-based applications, but also mobile as well. Testim does have mobile testing as well now. So that's kind of the biggest differentiator is if you're looking to test fit clients, GUIs on the desktop, that's going to be more in Tosca's realm, but anything in the web, Testim's very equipped to handle.
All right. And guys, do you have anything to add? Federico, Albert?
Yeah, well, just from my experience, and this is sort of goes with what Jacob just mentioned for Testim, as far as my experience goes, for the mobile side, it is a little bit more limited than what you can get from a Tosca or that type of tool. But definitely both very, very well suited to do basic tests.
All right, Federico, I think you agree. I see you say yes.
Yeah, I'm nodding because both are capable of automating web-based and also mobile applications. They are like getting better and better on the mobile side. So yeah, agree with both.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to add one more comment about the mobile capabilities, at Tricentis, both tools, we are continuing to heavily invest in improving mobile automation technologies. So both Tosca and Testim are going to only continue to get better with mobile automation. I mean, they're already good now, but we're still continuing to push that forward.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
And I think we talked a little bit about ease of use already. When I asked you if I can use them, me that know nothing.
Well, going back to that, Quentin, and I know I've bugged you in the past about it, but really, both tools are set for individuals that are either hopping into the QA industry or they're more of a business analyst type role where they don't need to go in too much in depth into testing, but they still have to create a few tests for their own purposes. So it's really built for all types of skill levels, all types of different roles within your organization. If you need to test, well, these two tools are built for easy learning and accessibility and ease of use. Well, what really differentiates here, and I'll touch a little bit in the automation approaches, is what methodology your company is using. That will also really determine which tool you want to go to more than the other. Where Testim is more agile geared and really connects very well to your CI/CD pipelines, versus Tosca, where it's a enterprise level tool that can really adapt to almost any situation.
Thank you. And I will go back on the Tricentis Academy. Jacob just post the link if you want to check out. And as he was saying in the chat, it's free. The training is free. So don't hesitate to go check that.
Thank you, Tricentis.
Thank you, Tricentis. I will check that out too. That way Albert cannot say that I'm not a technical guy. All right, so you wanted to talk about it, Albert, so I'm gonna let you start. What about scalability now?
Fantastic. Well, that's a parallel to what I just said. Scalability, and this is something that really goes with my experience. Tosca, very enterprise level, so scalable amongst many teams. There's a lot of project sharing, a lot of verticals within your organization that can adopt it. Different regions, so it really is built to be deployed for large enterprise level teams, whereas from my point of view, Testim is more strategic. So it's really targeted for smaller, quicker deployments and test
I have an
cycles.
objection there, Albert.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Ahead.
as you said, it's easier to scale to like have more scalability on Tosca. However, we have some really good examples on testing side that if you do things with a good strategy, planning ahead what you're about to do, you can get like really big teams with thousands of test cases running. We have a really big company as an example that is Microsoft, and they are running thousands of test cases like every month. So they have a big team and scalability applied perfectly. So we could say that both are good for scalability. Perhaps Tosca is more like oriented and you have to plan it a little better on testing, but you can also do it.
Fantastic. Well, we're gonna have to tie off on that one, Federico. Like, I would love to see that use case.
Yes, sir.
There's also a great feature that Testim has that I think is often overlooked, but using the AI engines that's in Testim, it will look at your test case portfolio and make suggestions on where you should be creating reusable test step libraries. So the more you're just creating these test cases, it'll kind of analyze your test case and say, hey, you've repeated these 8 steps 20 times. You should just make that a library block that you can add into your test cases whenever you need. So again, Tosca is more upfront, built around reusability and scalability, but Testim still has a lot of scalability potential in it as well.
Fantastic.
Thank you for those precisions and experiences. Thank you, guys. And now,
as always, very welcome.
I'm so sorry. My Google Home is it's
Always
alive.
Oh, technology.
It's scary. It happens a lot those past few weeks. I'm getting scared. So let's talk about scenarios for tool selection. And I'm gonna let you start, Albert, with the complexity.
No, definitely, yeah. And here now that Federico added that last point, I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to say that thing. But no, definitely complexity wise, from a Tosca perspective, I know that it really is built for those highly large, highly complex installations or environments. I know that Testim also is very well suited for complex scenarios, but maybe not. But now this is where I'm curious to see how far we can push it. Is to see how scalable to those complexities or comparative to Tosca it can be, right?
Right.
Both good tools. That's what I'm trying to say.
All right. And what about team size? Which tool would you recommend to larger team?
That's what we just said. I mean, the best fit could be Tosca when we're talking about enterprise level, but Testim also could handle like large team size as everything is well planned and with a good strategy. You can do both, but Tosca I think is the best fit there.
All right. What about agile development? Oh, Jacob, you wanted to add something?
Jump in.
Yeah. I think, and it's not necessarily about team size, but it's more about project structure. I think Tosca lends itself much more to being able to handle multiple work streams and multiple projects within the same workspace. Testim is a little more equipped for individual workspace. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have multiple Testim instances within an organization, but it's a little more streamlined for individual teams, whereas as Tosca is equipped to handle many teams. So just, no matter how big those teams are.
All right.
Very well said.
All right, so I'm gonna go back to agile development. Which tool would you recommend for agile team?
Well, I'll take this one real quick, and then Federico can come and correct me afterwards. So again, I mentioned it earlier. Both tools are suitable for an agile practice. However, Testim, it was really built around that type of structure or CI/CD pipeline type work. And if my money was on my practice is 60, 70, 75% agile, then I would definitely go with something like Testim, a faster, lighter tool.
Yeah.
All right.
I could add there that the good thing on agile development teams is that you might need to wear different hats. So, for example, business analysts, designers, developers, QA, anyone could automate a test in that team. So using the automator hat is a possibility using Testim, and on agile development, you want everything for today or tomorrow. And I have seen tests created within minutes. So you could be like getting a really good coverage on a short amount of time.
All right. Thank you for the precision. And finally, functional testing here is, from what I can read here, Tosca extensive feature set makes a strong choice for comparative functional testing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. When it comes to functional testing, well, again, it goes down to what it was built around, and it's built around the model-based testing, as Jacob mentioned throughout this presentation. It really is its strong suit, right? But both are very well geared towards it. It's just that if we want a more comprehensive, in my experience, comprehensive testing practice around it, I would go more with the Tosca.
All right. And before we talk about the synergy between the two tools, I have two questions for you. We have one question from Sonila, who is asking, who is maintaining the code behind the test script? Does anyone wants to answer that question?
As a general practice in either tool?
Yeah.
So I can go ahead and take this from a Tosca standpoint. There really isn't any code behind the test script. It's a purely codeless solution. There are pro code options where you can utilize code to extend the functionality, but there isn't any, you can't open up your test case and read lines of code to edit. So when you're building out these models and you want to maintain these models, that is the same skill set as scanning the page. We're just going to rescan and make adjustments. So it's usually the test developers who are also going to maintain that. Now with Testim, when you're using the record and playback and has the self-heal, the need for active maintenance isn't as much there. But I think sometimes if you want to extend the capabilities with JavaScript or Node.js, now we have that co-pilot. It's going to help non-coders learn to do that. But having on an agile team, having someone who has some coding knowledge can help do that as well. And Federico, I don't know if you want to speak more to what that looks like out in practice, where we're needing to leverage those capabilities.
No, just to add a little bit, you have a lot of tools for troubleshooting within testing. So it makes it easier. It makes it easier when you have a fail on your suites or on your runs. So it brings you a lot of tools like screenshots, logs, a lot of stuff that you could solve things right away, although maintainability is pretty low.
All right, and Sonila is adding, so Copilot is going to create libraries for common functionalities?
Let me see here.
That's the question here. You can find it in the Q&A if you want to check for that.
We do have a Copilot question coming up as well.
Copilot actually.
Yeah, so with the Testim Copilot, it's not going to create common libraries, but it's like you might ask, it's going to be like a generative AI. It's going to be similar to like Microsoft's Copilot or ChatGPT, where you're going to say, hey, Testim Copilot, I need a function that can parse an API response, or that can get a value out of an API response, something like that. And then it's going to give you the code that will do that. That's what Copilot's really going to help you with, is take people who don't know how to write code and give them the basics of that code response.
It takes you out of the blank page. It's always my problem when I need to code something. It's like the blank page kills me. So having a base is really good to start working on snippets and JavaScript.
All right. So
Good
Nila,
point.
if you have any other question, don't hesitate. And we have 3 other questions from anonymous people. I'm gonna go through them. The first question we have here, and you can check for it too, is there a specific test case management tool preferred for each?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So here at Tricentis, we have a great test management tool called Qtest. Both tools integrate with Qtest natively. And Qtest has many, and we could have a whole webinar on Qtest by itself. It's got many benefits to both agile and waterfall QA organizations. But Qtest can integrate with a ton of stuff. So it can integrate with your CI/CD pipelines, has a native Jira integration as well, can integrate really well with Azure DevOps, but also has these native integrations to not just Tricentis automation tools, but other automation tools as well. So Qtest can really fit into any QA landscape, but from a Tosca Testim standpoint, that's definitely our choice for a test management tool.
All right, another question. Can Testim handle complex test cases that have many steps and interact with UI and API?
I could take that one
Yeah,
if you
go
want. It can. Actually, you have this specific feature on Testim to use APIs. So you can include APIs in your codes, like interacting with UI. For example, when you want to stop testing the login and not having the UI, the whole flow on every test case that you need it, you can use an API, have your login, and you would have the session straightforward and not having to use the UI. So yeah, you can handle complex test cases and interact with UI and APIs.
And
In case if anybody else is curious, Tosca does the same.
You need to do it.
Yeah. API these days, yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of test cases, can you export them from those tools?
Export them.
I
Let's
have
see.
a question. Can you
Code, I
export
think.
those test cases?
So with Tosca, there's no exporting, just because it's not, the test cases aren't really developed in a language that any other tool would understand. Now you can move Tosca test cases and Tosca modules to other instances of Tosca. So we have other partners who build accelerator packs for certain ERP systems like SAP, and those they can sell and share and things like that. We also have other teams who build these kind of templates within their organization, and then they share those within the organization. But in terms of can we export this out to Selenium or something like that? That's not really possible. And Federico, correct me, but I think there's some capability to export test and test cases to Selenium code, although not recommended. But
no, exactly. It used to be. I think they took it out because it wasn't that good. Like the best way to use testing was within testing.
Of course.
So I would say no.
Or at least preferably not.
Preferably not, exactly.
And I'm gonna go back real fast, and then we're gonna continue the webinar. Last question I take right now. I'm gonna go back on Copilot. So Nila was adding another question. Is the code created from the Copilot going to be peer reviewed?
Do you want to go for it, Jacob?
yeah, I mean, I think that would be, and I think this really applies to all generative AI right now. Is anything that Gen AI is spitting out should be peer reviewed within the organization. Now, is Tricentis looking at the code snippets before we hand it off to you? No, that would just be a huge slowdown in processes if we reviewed every snippet that it generated. But yeah, anything that Gen AI is spitting out in any of the Tricentis copilots and any tool outside of Tricentis should definitely be reviewed before you put it into action. I think, if you've seen some of the memes about Google's AI recently, what they've been doing, AI is such a new technology. Hallucinations is what we call it, where AI thinks it's generating a correct response, but might not be correct. Now, the Tricentis copilots, we have put some more guardrails around our copilots, knowing that their intended use is for QA and for automation to help it, create more directed responses. But you should still review what it spits out. I think Federico kind of mentioned that with the Testim copilot, it gets him away from when he needs to write some code. He's not staring at a blank page. He now has this basis where he can review that code and then make changes where he needs to make it solve the problem that he wants it to. So you definitely want to do some type of internal reviews there.
Yeah, and just to add a little thing, on Testim you have your own way to handle branches. So whenever you need, you can raise a PR, so someone in your team could review that. So peer review could be within the team, and Testim provides the tool to do it pretty easy.
All right. Thank you very much for all the answers and everyone for the questions. As a reminder, at the end of this webinar, you will be able to ask more questions. Let me just write your question in the Q&A option. It's at the bottom of your screen, and I will take them at the end of this webinar. Now, back to our subject. The synergy between the two tools. Federico, would you like to start on this subject?
I have talked a lot, but I can start with it. As you can see on the slide, Tosca is better focus for end-to-end testing, talking about complex systems. It's more into that part. And on the other hand, Testim is more into creating. It's a recurrent playback based tool, so it's about click and play. So it's pretty fast, but for complex environments, we could talk about Tosca. I don't know, Albert, you have anything else to
Yeah, well, definitely. Tosca is built around these much larger, as it says, end-to-end. So it really does touch upon web application, desktop applications, mobile APIs, and web services. I can just keep going. Mainframe, ERP. It really does handle a large series of tests and platforms, whereas Testim is very, very web-centric, so web applications, a little bit of mobile. It also does API and web services, but aside from that, there's maybe some cross-browser testing, and that's pretty much it, right? So definitely there's a synergy of having both tools installed in your organization. There's great user stories for that, where you could have both practices simultaneously or in parallel, and they just augment your QA practice and the results and if you're into the KPIs and reporting and all that stuff, it really does enhance and add a different perspective, having both tools. Now, a little caveat, and this is where Jacob, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. There's no real integration between both tools, so they don't connect to each other. So they can't feed one into the other.
Right, and I think that when you're looking at the two tools, like they're both creating automation scripts. So when people say how do they integrate, I was like, what does that integration look like to you? What would you want to see out of an integration? Because there's not a huge reason to have both automation technologies working in conjunction. Now, having them running in parallel and reporting up to a tool like Qtest, or having them both being able to be triggered by a CI/CD pipeline is really where we're going to see them all kind of tying in together into a QA organization, not necessarily at the individual practitioner level, but where a company's looking to come in and solve multiple problems within the organization. You can have those all being triggered by one development pipeline and having them all reporting into one, test management system or reporting's dashboard system as well, so you can see those results side by side.
Good point. Yeah.
All right. So anything to add about the synergy between the two tools and why people may be interested in using both?
Again, it's visibility. It provides different points of views to your organization, and it just enhances or improves the type of reporting that you can create via a test management system, such as Qtest.
All right. And speaking of using both tools, we have an example here. Jacob, would you like to introduce this customer story?
Yeah, so we have a customer who's a major customer or major company in the beauty and cosmetics industry, Fortune 100 company. They actually have a whole gamut of Tricentis solutions: Testim, Tosca, Qtest. We've talked about Qtest quite a bit, and Neoload, which is our performance testing tool. So it's common that we'll see Qtest, Neoload, and Testim or Tosca a lot, but it's becoming more common that we're seeing both Testim and Tosca within the same organization. And really the reasons for that is because they're solving different problems. As we've kind of alluded to throughout this call, they both have their own strengths and weaknesses. And organizations are understanding that, we can utilize both and have these strengths and weaknesses covered in different areas of the business. So Tosca, is being handled within this organization for those complex, really end-to-end business scenarios where maybe we're taking information from a mainframe system and moving that through into an ERP system or into Salesforce or something like that, where we're really moving data a lot along throughout the chain. And then Testim is a lot more, fast-moving teams who are maybe building customer-facing toolings or are working with maybe some internal toolings that are primarily web-based, but which a lot of customer-facing tools these days are going to be web-based. So Testim's really able to attack those fast-moving systems, where Tosca is a little more equipped to cover heavy, slow-moving systems. So this customer utilizes both to solve those exact problems. An analogy I like to use when talking about the two tools is Tosca's kind of like a big semi-truck. You're going to be able to move a lot with it, but it's not going to be the fastest thing. Testim's more like your Ducati. It's agile, it's quick. Maybe it's not going to haul a huge load, but it's going to be able to get people from A to B really fast, and it's going to be able to make really sharp turns and adjust accordingly really quickly. So, you can have both cars in a garage. You don't need to have one or the other.
I love it.
Yep. Albert, Federico, do you have any experience that you want to share with a customer that used both tools?
Yeah.
I could
go ahead.
speak about Testim.
Federico, yeah.
I've worked with different teams, different sizes, having just trainings. They were already creating their own test cases, working on platforms like Salesforce, for example. There are some tools provided within Testim that can help you create these cases fast. Those teams were mainly business analysts, so they had no idea on anything talking about automation. So it was A quick view on how to automate some best practices, and they were already creating their test cases, adding assertions, having the run scales like for every Friday, so on Monday they would come back and have the results. It was really good to see that synergy, and then they actually kept the project by themselves. So it was really good to see that.
Thank you, thank you. And Albert, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, well, from our experience, and this is where I fed myself from the prior answer. Um, it very similar to Jacob's scenario where we worked with an organization that had both tools. They went more with the traditional deployment of both tools. So the testing was more targeted for their agile teams, and it was quick, efficient. They were working out of three week sprints, so they needed to keep up. They needed a tool that was fast and to be able to keep up with their team and the pace. Whereas Tosca was more deployed throughout a much larger, broader amount of teams, and that one, because they weren't necessarily in an agile, they were more, as people call it, agile, right? Waterfall agile methodology. They would be a little bit slower in their testing, but they would have all these wonderful features assisting them. So, properly orchestrating, properly able to really schedule and utilize the power. Oh, actually, that was to Q test. So my mistake. But yeah, no, the Tosca, it was really meant for those more slower, beefy type of installs and for testing. But definitely, once they were tasked with producing specific reports, that's when they saw the advantages of having Testim backing up the data that was being generated. So it would just create more complete and more comprehensive reports at the end.
All right. Thank you to the three of you for sharing those experiences. Is there anyone you want to add before we go ahead? No? Let's go. So, implementation. And as you may have noticed, we have normally 5 minutes, but we can go above the 1 hour since we already took some question. So feel free to develop here. About the implementation, Jacob.
I can take this one.
Tell us. Oh, okay, go ahead, Albert.
Well, from more of a partner point of view, because I know Tricentis, they're on the ball when it comes to implementations and stuff like that. At least from our perspective, implementations can be depending on if the team is ready, if the customer is ready. There's your perfect scenario where everything is ready, everyone is queued up. That could be 2-3 week projects, really quick and easy. And as we've all experienced in the past, when you have to go get the irrigations, or when you have to go get a security team that doesn't want to participate, all these different roadblocks that can happen within an implementation, well, that sort of extends the length. But the solutions themselves, Testim is SaaS. You request it, you get an environment, you start building from there. Easy peasy. You can be up and running within a day or two. Tosca, a little bit more complex to install, so that might take a little bit longer, but still, in comparison to other tools on the market, it is a pretty straightforward install.
All right.
And I want to add, so when we're talking about the installs or the setup with these, that Albert's referring to is we're talking about really getting it, ready for the organization, really getting it fully set up. But both tools, you can go, get your trial in the academy today and start creating test cases today. Well, Testim's a cloud tool, so it's pretty able to just like stand up and run. Tosca has some server-side infrastructure that you need for the organization level setup. But in terms of using the actual tool to create test cases, you can do that locally immediately, just by installing the thick client, and you're off to the races. and then then you get that cloud infrastructure set up later and migrate your test cases into that cloud, or the not cloud infrastructure but server side infrastructure. So there's certainly a little more time there, but you can get started immediately.
All right. Federico, is there anything you want to add about the implementation?
Just what we have seen during the whole webinar, that both are really good tools. They can complement each other. They both have integration with CI/CD. So if you have something up and running, you can add either of them. It would be depending on the reality of the project, if you want to pick one or the other. But if you have a really large enterprise system, you might have things on both sides.
And thank you, because it sounds like a closing thought already.
I
So-
jumped in.
Yep, good job.
It was the intro for this one.
There you go.
So this one,
But,
as I said when we prepared this webinar, is more like a conversation and a conclusion.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna start with you, Jacob. One final word about Tosca and Testim.
Sure. Yeah. So I think both tools are highly equipped to solve a lot of different QA problems in the organization. Again, just to come back to kind of the big and I don't want to say slow, but big and heavy versus light and agile are kind of your two differences between the two tools. But both are highly effective testing tools. You're not really going to struggle with either when you're trying to create test cases. They're both going to be really effective. They're both low code. They're both easy to learn, easy to utilize. And both of our great partners here on the call are great at getting our customers stood up and running as well. I think both SQALogic and Abstracta, we've worked well with them. We know they are just as much experts in our tools as we are. So we fully trust you guys to lean on them for help support getting stood up as well.
And that's a
Fantastic.
great way for me to add again that at the end of this webinar you will have access to a web page where you can complete a form, and that way you will be able to contact both so the three company actually, Tricentis, Abstracta, and us. We're gonna work together for the follow-ups. Don't hesitate if you want to meet with us, talk a little bit more, wants to get help in choosing one of the two solutions, if you want to implement another one, let us know. Albert, any conclusion?
Final thoughts?
Yep, final.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, echoing everything that the guys have said. They're both really solid tools. For beginners, for experienced, for coders, for no coders. Really, you name your skill set, you could pretty much use both tools. Definitely, my personal recommendation would be Tosca is more geared towards that enterprise need, right, of being able to support across multiple applications or various different types of applications, versus Testim, it's more of a web application focused. So just keeping that in mind for your teams. I know that nowadays web applications is very, very popular, and it's on the rise with cloud-based solutions and all that stuff. So definitely it's important to keep in mind your personal reality, your organization's reality, but not only what the reality is, but where is your company going to go within the next 3 to 5 years? Be a little bit more, do you guys want to be more leading edge? Do you want to be more just future proof? Then you definitely owe it to yourselves to look at a sort of a mix of solutions. And definitely something that's interests me that I haven't personally had a chance to look into is the whole Copilot. Everything is being embedded with AI these days. Copilot might be actually very, very interesting and very worth trying. for the companies that are just getting started in QA that are growing in their maturity. So that's my final thought. Yeah, keep an eye out for both. Keep an eye out for Copilot, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you very much, Albert. Federico, anything to add?
These guys covered it all pretty much. But yeah, I agree on that you have to check your reality to see what's the best fit. They are complementary, so it's not that, okay, if I have Tosca, I shouldn't go for testing or the other way. So it's about having a really good idea of what you need, short term, mid term, long term, and see how to do it. And feel free to like check with us if you haven't solved what's the best for you. We could help you guys.
Well, thank you guys. And we are at the last slide. The floor is now open, and I already have like 2 questions to ask you. But before I do so, here you can see I wrote the email address for each of the experts that spoke today. If you want to contact us, feel free to do so. I'm sure they will be happy to answer all of your questions, feedbacks about the webinar. And you can also scan the QR code. I already talked about that code like 3 times, I think. So I'm gonna do it very fast. Scan it, go to the website, complete the form, and you can also access Abstracta's, Tricentis, and SQALogic website from there. I am gonna ask one question from Luis first. Luis is asking, is it possible to do API testing in Testim? That's hard to say.
Yes, I'll just answer a frank yes. Federico, you might have more in-depth explanation towards it.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty easy. You have a DD form similar to Postman. So anyone that has used services knows that interface is pretty much the same. You can select whatever you need and have several APIs of the same test case. It will depend on what you need to test. For example, to see if like APIs are working fine, you can use mocks, like whatever you need, you can do it with testing indeed.
Fantastic. Does it also cater to organizations that are using Swagger or any other similar API solutions?
Not sure about that.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying from my point of view from Tosca, Tosca can work with other API platforms as well.
Cool.
Fantastic.
I owe you that one.
All right, and I have another question regarding the licenses model. How does it work, Jacob?
Yeah, so both tools kind of take a different approach to the licensing model. Tosca is going to be concurrent licenses, so concurrent seated licenses, so you kind of a traditional model. Testim's taking a little bit of a different approach in that it's going to be based on usage, on how many runs you're running per year. So the way that that's going to scale within an organization is a little differently. Like both are competitively priced. It's not like one's going to be, if you're running 100,000 test cases a year, it's not going to be an astronomical bill. It's still competitively priced for large test suites. But there's a little bit of different approach to how we're licensing those out, which might affect tool selection as well. I think for more details on cost and licensing, definitely reach out to either your reps at SQA or Abstracta, or reach out to someone at Tricentis to have a deeper conversation about what might be the right fit for you in terms of that.
Use the form on the website.
Right.
Scan the code. All right, that's it for now. If anyone has any question, now is the time to ask it. Or again, you can contact us via other way. While I wait for any potential question, I want first to thank you guys for your involvement in this webinar. I'm only gonna talk for myself, but it was a great pleasure to work with you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And also thank you for all the people that came today. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the reactions. Yeah. And as I said at the beginning of the webinar, you can expect a replay next week. We will send you an email with a link, but you can also keep an eye open on our LinkedIn pages for more information on how to access the replay. Finally, I'm gonna open the possibility of another webinar with Abstracta and Tricentis. Keep an eye open because I think we're gonna talk about doing another one. So yeah, if
anybody has any suggestions on topics, feel free to send them over.
Everyone is
or else
gonna ask for AI. Come on.
Oh well, the AI is a very
Yeah.
big subject this year as well, and if people want to really hear a very good presentation, David is having one at Star West. It's going to be a very eye-opening reality to QA and AI.
All right, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have one more question from Javier. Is there any plugins that can be added to either of those tools? And if yes, what's your preferred one?
Ooh, that's a good one.
So I think in terms of Tosca, there's not like a ton of plugins. Now you can build extensions with C#. I think the biggest plugin that we see a lot with Testim though is Applitools for UX testing. So we have a direct integration with Applitools that allows you to do more usability testing instead of functional testing.
All right. If there is no other question, I'm gonna free everyone. Again, thank you to everyone. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to you guys here. As a reminder, we had Jacob Mansfield from Tricentis. Bye-bye, Jacob, and thank you. We had Federico Martinez from Abstracta. Thank you very much, Federico.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was amazing to share thoughts with these guys. Great team here, so looking forward for the next one.
Yes. And
yes,
finally, we had Albert Reyes here from SQALogic. Thank you, Albert.
My pleasure. To the decent host.
To decent host? You want to
decent host?
A
decent. We'll take it. Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm gonna end the webinar right now. It's always a strange moment for me because I never know what is gonna be the last word. Bye bye.
Bye everyone.
Bye bye.
Take care.